Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in this video, I'll be comparing the dual cameras on the iPhone 14 with the triple cameras on the iPhone 15 Pro. Since the iPhone 16 is just around the corner, a few of my friends who are using the iPhone 14 are anticipating a price drop on the iPhone 15 Pro and are planning to upgrade into it in a month or two. But before that, they just wanted to see how much of an improvement, if any, would they be getting in the camera department. If you are in a similar situation, then sit tight and make sure to watch this complete video because it is going to answer all of your questions about the cameras on the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 15 Pro. We are going to take a look at over 140 image and video samples from both these phones combined, but before we get to them, let us take a quick look at the cameras that we are working with. iPhone 14 gets dual 12 megapixel cameras. Primary one gets a physically larger image sensor with f1.5 aperture, 26mm lens and sensor shift image stabilization. Secondary camera gets a somewhat smaller image sensor with f2.4 aperture and a 13mm ultra-wide angle lens. iPhone 15 Pro gets triple cameras on its back. Primary camera gets a massive 48 megapixel sensor with f1.8 aperture, 24mm lens and sensor shift image stabilization. Next camera gets a 12 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture and a 13mm ultra-wide angle lens. This lens has focusing abilities and it can focus on very close objects, giving this camera macro shooting abilities. And finally, there is another 12 megapixel sensor with f2.8 aperture and 77mm or a 3x telephoto lens in front of it. This camera also gets optical image stabilization. So although you can see just 3 cameras on the back of the iPhone 15 Pro, combined they can actually act like a quad camera setup. At the front, both of them have a pretty similar 12 megapixel camera with f1.9 aperture and 23mm lens. Now that we know the cameras that we are working with, let us start by checking out the image samples from their main cameras during daytime. I have clicked these images from both the phones in the exact same lighting conditions. One of these images is from the iPhone 14 while other is from the iPhone 15 Pro. But without these labels at the bottom, I honestly don't feel that even I could tell them apart. This in itself is a big point in favor of the iPhone 14. There are a few subtle differences like the way they capture colors and dynamic range, the framing, etc. But you need to have a very conscious eye to notice these subtle differences. If you look closer, the main camera on the iPhone 15 Pro gets a 2mm wider lens compared to the main camera on the iPhone 14. The difference is very little, but this means that the iPhone 15 Pro captures a slightly wider scene. Once you start paying more attention, you might even start noticing a bit extra warmth in the shots on the iPhone 15 Pro, which represents how hot it was when I took these shots or how warm the lights were in this shot. As you zoom in this or any of the other shots, you will also see that the iPhone 15 Pro captures more details than the iPhone 14. This is partly because the 15 Pro has a much bigger image sensor behind its main camera, and partly because it is capturing 24 megapixel worth of details with its 48 megapixel sensor, while the iPhone 14 is just able to capture 12 megapixel worth of information. Now, higher megapixels doesn't always mean better images, but in this case it seems to be true to some extent. Initially, both the images look to have good details, but as we zoom in on them, you will find that one from the iPhone 14 seemed to have added some amount of digital sharpness to make its images look more detailed, whereas one from the iPhone 15 Pro actually has more details in it. These are obviously some of the things which we'll notice only if we zoom in so far. Now something that can be noticed even without zooming in is the way that these phones capture light and colors. iPhone 14 tends to capture a brighter looking shot, and in that hopes it sometimes overexposes the shot. 15 Pro on the other hand tries to keep the highlight and overall shot in check. At times, that might make its image appear a bit dull, but it actually ends up evenly exposing the shot while capturing a lot more details. In this shot, both of them seem to have done well at first glance. But as we look closer, you will notice that iPhone 14 has overexposed the petals of this flower, whereas 15 Pro managed to handle it much better and you can see much more information in its image. That being said, if you look at the images from both these phones without putting them under a microscope, you will find that both are capturing really good shots. It's not a secret that Apple has messed up the HDR mode on iPhone since the last couple of years, but with the iPhone 15 series, they have made things so much better. You can see the difference in the HDR mode for yourself. Now I have not tapped on any of the parts of the image, just pointed the cameras towards the scene and these are the results. Even in this next set of images, you can see the iPhone 14 blew up the brighter parts outside the window, whereas the iPhone 15 Pro managed it so well. It evenly exposed the darker and brighter parts of the scene, making the overall shot look balanced. In some of the shots like this one, the difference in the dynamic range is huge, while in others it's a bit subtle. As you can see here, the shadows are lifted a bit more in the shots from the iPhone 15 Pro, while the same parts look almost completely dark in the images from the iPhone 14. The bright sun is also more evenly exposed and the colors of the iPhone 15 Pro's images are also looking better. I feel like the overall colors in the outdoor shots look slightly warmer in the images from the iPhone 15 Pro, while they seem to be a bit cooler in the shots from the iPhone 14. I took these images in very bright sunny lighting conditions, so it was very hot out there, And I think we can feel a bit of that when we look at the images from the iPhone 15 Pro. Before we move on to the close-up shots, here is a quick word from this video's sponsor, magbak. They make these amazing silicone cases which provide all-round protection to your iPhone. These cases have a very soft touch feel to the back which feels amazing and provides a ton of grip. These magbak cases have some of the strongest magnets built in, thanks to which you can attach various accessories to the back of this case, like this magbak wallet which can even act like a kickstand. You can easily fit 3 cards and some cash when the wallet is new, but once you break it in, it can hold up to 9 cards, which is just amazing. The best thing is, this magbak wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. They make even more accessories like this 3-in-1 wireless charger which can charge an iPhone, AirPods and an Apple Watch at the same time. It even comes with a charging brick which supplies enough power to charge all 3 devices simultaneously. Along with iPhones, magbak makes these cases for Samsung and Google flagship smartphones as well, and they also have a lot of other accessories for your other devices. To check them out, click on the link in the description section and make sure to use the discount code TW15 at checkout to get 15% off on your order. For the close-up shots on the iPhone 14, you can get slightly more closer to your subject, so its minimum focusing distance is better than that of the iPhone 15 Pro. But with the 1.2 or the 1.3x zoom in option on the iPhone 15 Pro, you can get similar framing as the iPhone 14. I love the depth of field or the bokeh that we get in the background of these close-up shots on the iPhone 15 Pro. This is all thanks to the big image sensor behind its main camera. Initially, I used to prefer the iPhone 14 for taking close-up shots, but once I got used to the 1.2x zoomed in mode on the iPhone 15 Pro, I started taking more and more close-up shots with it. As I mentioned earlier, iPhone 15 Pro can take macro shots as well. So if you want to get closer to your subject for capturing even more details, the 15 Pro will let you get this much closer. These macro shots are being captured with the ultra-wide angle lens, so these are 12 megapixel shots. Since this lens doesn't have OIS, you will have to be very steady, as even a minute vibration can result in a blurry shot. In the end, you can see how amazing these macro shots look. The wide lens on the iPhone 14 just can't take these kind of shots. So if you're a macro photography enthusiast, you will love this ability of the iPhone 15 Pro. Now the ultra-wide angle lens, as the name suggests, lets you take ultra-wide shots as well. And here are how both of them compare against each other. Leaving the macro shooting ability of the ultra-wide camera on the iPhone 15 Pro, these cameras on both the phones are pretty much similar, so any difference that we see in these images is a direct result of their image processing. It might be a bit difficult to notice from so far, but as we zoom in, you can see that the wide shots on the iPhone 15 Pro are slightly sharper and they also have a lot less noise, making the overall shot look a lot cleaner. In this shot, you can also see the 15 Pro showing better dynamic range by handling the sunlight better. So we see an improved HDR performance from the iPhone 15 Pro across all the cameras, not just the primary camera. I don't use the ultra-wide camera on any of my phones all that often, but when I have the iPhone 15 Pro with me, I just feel more confident with it. Now if you guys don't know, you should never switch to the ultra-wide angle camera when you are indoors or when in artificial light. No matter which smartphone you are using, the ultra-wide angle lens will always deliver much worse results in these lights compared to your main camera. So it doesn't matter how many of your friends you want to get in the frame, when you are indoors, stick to the 1x or the main camera on your phone. iPhone 15 Pro gets a third camera which has a telephoto lens in front of it, so it can take 3x optically zoomed in shots. iPhone 14 doesn't have this extra camera, but it can still take 3x digitally zoomed in shots, and here are how both of them look next to each other. Even without zooming in, you can clearly tell that there is a lot more information in the 3x optically zoomed in shot from the iPhone 15 Pro. When you zoom in, you can see the difference much more clearly. There is just so much information in the 15 Pro shot, while most of the things just look muddy in the iPhone 14's 3x digitally zoomed in shots. 15 Pro's images again have better colors, they handle dynamic range in a better way, and again the images in general are much cleaner without any noticeable noise in them. If you don't zoom in a lot, then the 3x zoomed in shots on the iPhone 14 don't look all that bad, but when compared with the optically zoomed in ones, the latter just looks way better. So when you go with the iPhone 15 Pro, you get a much better reach for your phone's camera. Its main camera can also take 48 megapixel shots, and as you would expect, they have a lot more details compared to the 12 megapixel shots from the iPhone 14. But just like I have always shown, you will have to zoom in 4 to 5 times at the very least to see those extra bit of details. These extra details come in handy when you are capturing some landscape or architecture, as that is when you would want to capture every minute detail if you ever have to zoom in on any particular part of the shot later on. The 12 megapixel shots on the iPhone 14 also hold on to a lot of details, and if you think you don't have to zoom in a lot on your images, then it helps you take good shots as well. Even on the iPhone 15 Pro, I suggest you to stick to the default 24 megapixel mode for most of your shots, as those images also have incredible amount of details for most everyday situations. Since the 15 Pro gets LiDAR sensor, which is supposed to help it with better edge detection while taking portrait shots, it does have a slight edge when it comes to detecting edges accurately for these kind of images. I love to take portrait shots with my phone. Every time I have people in the shot, I just switch to the portrait mode, and I think those shots look a lot better. I'm sure I'm not the only one who does this because Apple introduced the auto portrait mode on the entire iPhone 15 series. What this mode does is, as soon as it detects a face in the frame, it captures depth information as well. And if you want, you can go ahead and make these portrait shots with just a couple of taps. Well, the iPhone 14 does a pretty good job with these kind of images. Ones from the iPhone 15 Pro are on a whole new level. It also makes the overall colors and skin tones look much closer to how you could see the scene with your own eyes. And as you would expect, when the situation demands better dynamic range, iPhone 15 Pro captures a much better shot. iPhone 15 Pro has another advantage that it will let you take 2x and 3x zoomed in portrait shots as well, which when you have good lighting conditions and enough space to move back can end up looking amazing. iPhone 14 doesn't get this option as it doesn't have a telephoto lens. Whenever someone takes a portrait shot with a DSLR camera, they usually switch to the 85mm lens. And the 3x lens on this iPhone 15 Pro provides that look for your portrait shots, making them look even more professional. Now the key to getting good portrait shots out of any smartphone is to set the aperture number or the f-stop value to something like f3.5. By default, on most of the smartphones it is set to f1.8 and that results in a very unnatural looking blur. Both these phones do a good job while detecting edges for the objects as well. iPhone 15 Pro is again a step ahead thanks to the LiDAR sensor. iPhone 14 is also pretty much neck to neck in terms of its resulting shots, but while taking these images, it sometimes takes a few milliseconds more for detecting these edges. This is not a huge deal, but if you are taking a lot of portrait shots back to back, this small difference does add up. That brings us to the images which are shot in artificial and lower lighting conditions. As the light gets lower, the phone with a bigger image sensor is usually the one taking better images, which in this case is the iPhone 15 Pro. It has a massive sensor behind its main camera compared to the iPhone 14. Both the phones also have wide aperture and sensor shift stabilization, both of which help gather a lot of light in diffused or lower lighting conditions. 15 Pro again handles the colors much better in these conditions. The color in this shot was reddish pink as you could see in its image, while the iPhone 14 make it look more orangish. From the first look, these images seem to have similar amount of details, but if you zoom in even a bit, you can clearly see the iPhone 15 Pro's image having much more details and lower noise. This is true for all of the artificial and low light shots. The shots might look somewhat similar from both the phones, but as soon as you zoom in more than 2x, you can see how quickly the iPhone 14's images start falling apart in these conditions and how much more details the 15 Pro manages to capture in its shots. As we move on to even lower light, the bigger image sensor on the iPhone 15 Pro starts taking even better looking shots. In some of the shots, iPhone 14's images might appear slightly brighter, but you can see that those images don't capture nearly as many details as the iPhone 15 Pro. And even in these situations, the 15 Pro manages to keep the noise levels to a minimum. Now I know some of these things just don't matter to a few people and they don't even zoom in on any of their shots. For them, the iPhone 14 seems to be doing a very good job, and if you have one, you can stick to it for at least another year if not longer. Both the phones switch to the night mode once the light gets as low as this. Now because the iPhone 15 Pro has a bigger image sensor and wide aperture, I found that it doesn't switch to the night mode as often as the iPhone 14 does. And when it does switch to the night mode, its exposure time is constantly lower than that of the iPhone 14. For example, the iPhone 14 had the shutter open for 2 seconds to capture this shot, and the iPhone 15 Pro just had it open for 1 second, and even during that time, it ended up capturing more light and details in its shot. When there is plenty of ambient light, both phones will do really well and capture a lot of information. You will barely see any difference in these images. I mean, other than the framing on the iPhone 15 Pro being slightly wider. But when you get to much lower light, iPhone 15 Pro is definitely the one taking better images. Its images are also surprisingly noise-free even in these lighting conditions, which is always a good sign. So if you take most of your images when the light is much lower, then you will really enjoy using the cameras on the iPhone 15 Pro. That brings us to the front-facing cameras. As I mentioned at the start, both of them get a very similar 12MP sensor behind these selfie cameras. Any difference that we might see in these selfies would be a direct result of their image processing algorithms. Just by looking at them for a moment, it is really difficult that which of these selfies is better than the other. But there are some subtle differences like slightly more contrast in the iPhone 15 Pro's image and a bit better reproduction of the skin tones no matter the lighting conditions. Other than that, I don't think there is a huge difference between their selfies. The images are actually in front of you, so you guys can take a look at them and try to decide which one did a better job. If you ask me, I don't think the selfie camera on the iPhone 15 Pro is that much better than that of the iPhone 14. I would say the same for the portrait selfies as well. There are again minute differences as I mentioned before, but overall these portrait selfies look pretty much same from both the phones. Edge detection might be slightly better from the iPhone 15 Pro in certain cases, but not in all of the shots. Again, like with the portrait shots from the rear camera, if you want your portrait selfies to look good and natural, have the f number set to something between f3.5 to f4.2 and see how much better your shots will turn out. For shooting videos, all the frame rate and resolution options are similar on both the phones, and to be fair, these videos look almost identical, at least in terms of details. Colors again are a bit warmer from the iPhone 15 Pro, which is how it was during the hour when I was shooting these videos. If you're serious about smartphone videos, then the iPhone 15 Pro gives you the option of capturing ProRes videos, and you can store these videos directly to an external storage drive by connecting it to the new USB Type-C port at the bottom. If you don't know what ProRes video is, then it is just like raw images but for videos. This video format stores a ton more information, so you can manipulate almost every aspect of the video with much more flexibility while editing. Other than that, I enjoy taking videos with both the phones, and if you are a casual photographer, you will have a great time with either one of them. But if you are serious about shooting videos with your smartphone, then the iPhone 15 Pro does things slightly better. Thanks to the big image sensor, the background in some of its videos gets blurred out a bit more, making its videos stand out. And it even captures better dynamic range and slightly better contrast, which makes it feel like its images have a bit more depth in them. The 3x lens on its back also gives you a bit more reach while shooting videos. You can digitally zoom in even further, but anything beyond 4x starts making the videos look a bit too unnatural. On the iPhone 14, if I want to zoom in, I stick to shooting videos at 2x digital zoom in level. Not beyond that, because again the videos start looking unnatural. I feel like the iPhone 15 Pro takes ever so slightly sharper videos with the ultra wide angle lens. But this difference is only visible if you look at these videos on a larger display like on your TV or something. If you just look at them on your phone, then they look pretty much identical. While iPhone 14 can shoot 4K 60fps videos with all its cameras, you cannot switch between the lenses while you are shooting at this resolution, while you can go from wide to normal to telephoto lens while shooting 4K 60fps videos on the iPhone 15 Pro. So that is one of the things which separates these two phones. If you are shooting at 4K 60fps resolution, you will have to choose the lens that you want to shoot with before you start recording the video on the iPhone 14. So those are all the image and video samples that I had for you guys. Honestly, I'm a bit surprised with the results. While I have been saying that the iPhone 15 Pro had been doing better in almost every aspect in this comparison, that is true for someone who really understands the ins and outs of photography. And my friends who wanted me to make this video are somewhat experts at smartphone photography, so they will definitely be noticing all these differences. But for a normal user, I believe most of these differences won't seem that huge. Yes, the 15 Pro gets an extra camera which will let you take optically zoomed in shots, and the wide lens lets you capture macro shots as well. But other than that, for most of the average users, I feel its results are not miles ahead of the iPhone 14. I think for most average users, the cameras on the iPhone 14 are still performing really well, and someone who knows how to use the light to their advantage and understands composition a bit will still be able to take amazing shots with the iPhone 14. If you are looking to make the upgrade from the 14 to the 15 Pro, then you should know that yes, you are getting an upgraded set of cameras and your images and videos will definitely turn out better in most lighting conditions. But for those who are on a fence about upgrading from the 14 and thinking if it is really worth spending your hard-earned money on the 15 Pro, I would say you could keep on using your iPhone 14 for another year at the very least. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.